vi har Expres2ion och CFO Keith Alexander. Welcome, Keith. Start your presentation. I will come back with some questions.
Great. And thank you, everyone, for having me here. I really appreciate it. And it's the name of the company is Expression Biotech, like protein expression. And so today I'm here to talk to you guys about breast cancer, which is truly a terrible disease that it's one of the biggest killers of women globally. And while there have been great advances in the treatment for breast cancer, a lot of women are left with resistance to the treatments, and therefore they end up progressing through the cancer itself. So it remains a very deadly unmet medical need for many women globally. And it's also a very large market. These medications that I talked about briefly are worth over $10 billion per year in terms of annual income. So it is a large market and makes it interesting for development of new therapies because there would be a reward at the end of that for investors. And so today what I'm going to do is talk about our immunotherapy, which is a first-in-class design based on many decades of research that have led us to this point where we can come with this kind of immunotherapy. And then I'll take your questions at the end. So, of course, we have a disclaimer. We're publicly traded on the NASDAQ First North Exchange under EXPRS2, and all the comments that I make today will be beholden to the disclaimer. So, touching on breast cancer, over 685,000 women per year are dying every year because of breast cancer. Most of us in this room have known someone who's been impacted by it. Personally, my best friend, he lost his wife to it. Each year, 2.3 million women are diagnosed with breast cancer. And in the majority of cases, it's a type of cancer called HER2-expressing breast cancer. And the women who have this, up to 50% of them end up relapsing. So they get some effect from the prevailing treatments, the standard of care, but then they stop getting any kind of effect from it, and they continue until they die. Furthermore, and many people don't know this, it's the #1 cancer in women under 50 years old, and the number of cases there has increased by 80% since 1990. So it's actually a growing threat for women under 50. And the projections are that over 3 million cases will be, there'll be over 3 million cases per year by 2040, and this will rise above 1 million unless new solutions emerge. So I've mentioned this word HER2 expression a couple times, and I just want to explain what that is. When you look in the middle, there are two charts or two diagrams there. The first one is a normal breast cancer cell, and the cell has these receptors on the outside called HER2 receptors. Those cells, or the HER2 receptors, tell the cell to grow and expand and divide. HER2 overexpression is when you have too many of these HER2 receptors, as shown in the bottom diagram, and that causes the cell to grow and divide more rapidly and uncontrollably. So that's what HER2 overexpression is, and we're going after those kinds of cases. So on the right-hand side, we break it down by the different types of HER2 expression, and then HER2 positive on the left, that's when they're really overexpressed. There's really very many of them. HER2 low is when they are overexpressed, but not to the same level as HER2 positive, and it's a spectrum. It's not black and white. And then HER2 negative is when they're not overexpressing. And so you can see in the vast majority of cases, there's some degree of HER2 overexpression. So that was the unmet medical need, the terrible disease, our villain, we can say. And here I want to touch on the market opportunity. Breast cancer as a whole is a 27 billion euro global market with a 7% compound annual growth rate projected over the next 5 years. Focusing on the HER2 targeting segment, that's over 10 billion of those 27 billion each year. And you can see some of the drugs there that have led the way, Herceptin and Perjeta from Roche. At peak, Herceptin was over 7 billion, and as the treatment has progressed, biosimilars have picked up there, and they have been over $3.25 billion in the last few years. And then Perjeta and Enhertu are each worth $2.1 and $2.6 billion per year. On the left-hand side, you see our chart, which has it broken down in some of the key markets globally, from broken down by HER2 overexpression, that's a HER2 positive, HER2 low, and then HER2 ultra low, which is another way of segmenting it. And the right-hand side, we have HER2 positive gastric cancer. So that's an expansion beyond breast cancer that we could go into with the same therapy once we establish safety and efficacy. And so, given this information here, we conservatively forecast or estimate our addressable market at over 5 billion euros per year. And just to show, and maybe this is a little bit too small print for this setting, but to show a few of the deals in this space, these are all HER2 expressing breast cancer drugs over the last 15 years. They're all, for the most part, multi-billion-dollar deals, depending on what stage they're treating and whether it's first or second line of treatment. But they're all large deals comprised of upfront payments exceeding 50 million euros or dollars, and then milestone payments getting up into the billions. And then on top of that, the royalties paid. So what we're not aiming to do is take it all the way to market and to commercialize it. We're just 18 people north of Copenhagen. We aim to take it through phase 1 clinical testing and phase 2, and then out-license it to a large biopharma partner. And at that point, we'd get the upfront payment and be paid milestones along the way for our investors. Okay, so now I've spoken about the terrible disease, the market opportunity, and how we as a company can pay back our investors for developing the drug. I'd like to talk about the drug itself for a little while. We've developed the first immunotherapy to target all 4 domains of the HER2 cell, or the HER2 receptor, with a virus-like particle. What does that mean? That's a lot of strange words. On the left-hand side, I've tried to illustrate it. We have a molecule that has in the center what is called a virus-like particle. It's an empty capsid cell that the body recognizes as a virus. And so it trains the body to have an immune response to it, but it has none of the harmful inside of a virus, so it's harmless to the body. And on the outside of that, we've attached antigens. And so these antigens are what trigger the immune response in the body. And we've intentionally displayed it as 4 pieces. And these are 4 pieces that are targeting the outside of the HER2 receptor. And in the illustration, you can see that each of these 4 pieces, they target a different part of it, domain 1, domain 2, 3, and 4. And the leading medicines out there right now are targeting one part of it. And we're targeting all 4. Why does that matter? Well, if you target one part, you're just targeting one segment of the cancer cell. And if all of a sudden that cancer cell develops a tolerance to the way you're targeting it, then your medicine doesn't work anymore. Furthermore, it allows us to attack from basically all sides. So if it's a very targeted attack with one domain, we're attacking from all sides with our it's called a polyclonal attack, where we're generating antibodies to attack all 4 domains of the HER2 tumor cell. This allows us to overcome resistance to the prevailing therapies and also have a longer response, we hope. That's what we saw in the preclinical data, and we hope to prove that in the human data as well. Our approach has been proven before in other vaccines. For cervical cancer, the HPV vaccines, they're based on a VLP with antigens on the outside. Those are very large drugs that are being administered broadly to young men and women around the world. So I talked about the fact that we're trying to trigger an immune response by targeting all 4 domains of the HER2 receptor. And I don't want to go into too much detail on the charts in this slide, but they all illustrate the same thing. Each one is an antibody response. So you have antigens, they trigger an antibody response. And what we've shown is that our vaccine does elicit an antibody response in the 4 antibodies that target the HER2 receptor. What's different with monoclonals is they only trigger 1. And so we trigger a broad polyclonal immune response. And what we also saw in our animal models is that the degree of response was much higher than it was for the monoclonal antibody, so it's a stronger response as well. So again, we're attacking from all sides, whereas monoclonal antibodies attack from a very targeted, specific area. Now I'm going to show you some animal data. First, I'm going to show you on the left-hand side, it's human breast cancer cell lines in a serum, basically. And these are ones that are specific because they don't respond to Herceptin anymore, the standard of care. And so what we've shown is that when we treat these cells with our vaccine, that's the 4 orange ones, it brings down the growth of cancer cells. So it's much lower than it would be if it was left untreated. That's the far left-hand side, or if it was treated with Herceptin. So we're showing that we work when Herceptin doesn't work. And then the chart on the right-hand side, what it's showing is it's a mouse that will spontaneously grow cancer cells in its lung. That's what the vehicle is. That's the control. And on average, they're spontaneously growing over 300 lung metastases. But when treated with our vaccine, they don't grow any. So it had 100% efficacy in this test. And so we've demonstrated that in animal models, and now we need to test it in human. I'll show some more animal data now, the last 2 animal charts. The left-hand side shows Delta 16 mice. These are mice that will spontaneously grow breast cancer tumors. And the black line shows the percent that are tumor-free when left untreated. And you can see that after 20 so weeks, very few of them are tumor-free. That's what we would expect because that's the way these mice are bred. And then what you can see with the red, that's our vaccine with an adjuvant. That's what we're testing right now. When treated, none of them developed any tumors. So we prevented tumor growth entirely. The chart on the right-hand side shows another kind of mouse called FVB mice that you can inject tumor cells into. And looking at the black, that's the control again, they will spontaneously grow in volume. And so after approximately 70 days, the tumor volume is about 2 cubic centimeters. And again, the red is our vaccine with an adjuvant, and you can see that it blocks all growth of the tumor in these animals when treated the same way. So again, animal data looks very, very good, but we need to test it in human. And so we've started doing that. In June of this year, we administered our vaccine to the first patient. And actually, just 2 weeks ago, we released some data from that patient showing that we had triggered the immune response that we were aiming to trigger. It was very significant and good data. Of course, it's based on 1 patient, and 1 patient does not a study make. So we need to show this in many, many more patients before we can say it's conclusive. But at that early stage, it was strong enough of a good signal that we wanted to share that with our investors. At this point, we've now dosed 3 patients, and we have a 4th patient in screening. We expect to have preliminary safety and dosage data in the middle of next year. We may have data even before then. Once we have the first patient going through all of their treatment, we'd like to show a curve of how their immune response has been, because we want to see if it stays high or if it tapers off. Like with the COVID-19 vaccines, after 10 months, you only have 25% response. We want to see if we maintain it or if it falls, and so that there's a temporary response. And then that's the phase 1A study that's going right now. And then we'll have a phase 1B study, which will give us signs of efficacy. Are we able to stop tumor progression? Are we able to even have tumors shrink in size? And we expect to have that for our full study at the end of next year, according to our current plan. And so it's a very interesting time for us right now. We've done a lot of work over the last many, many years to come to this point. And now we're getting proof in human for the efficacy and safety of our vaccine. And so far, we haven't seen any adverse safety signals. So it's looking good so far. But again, it's early stages. We need to see much more data in human. In terms of the actual study, the way it's broken up is we have 9 patients to start with, where we're going 3 at a time on a tapered basis to increase the dose slowly. We want to make sure it's safe. We start at a very low dose. We want to make sure it's safe before we go to a higher dose. And so the goal of these first 9 patients is to find what is a safe dose where we're actually seeing immune response. And then we have up to 18 more patients where we find a dose and we want to see that it's safe and demonstrating early signs of efficacy of stopping the disease progression. But that'll all be at 1 dose. And so that study will be completed by the end of next year, as I just mentioned. Taking a step back and looking at our plan more broadly. So you can see in the top left, we're in the phase 1 study with the first human data, which we aim to complete before the end of 2026. At that point, we'll decide on the design of the phase 2 study. And actually, that's when a licensing opportunity might open up for us. We from the beginning, have been talking to big pharma companies to understand what it is that they would be looking for in this type of immunotherapy. They will want to see the animal or the human data before they have any specific interest in it. But it could happen as early as after the phase 1 data is complete. When we enter the phase 2, that's what we call a proof of concept study. That would be a much bigger study with 300 patients, at least maybe 600 patients, depends on the design of the study. And after that, we would have a definite licensing opportunity if the data is good, and possibly even conditional approval. If the data is so strong that the regulators deem that they want to get it to patients faster, then we could have early conditional approval. But yeah, in terms of licensing, that's when we would target a licensing event. We cannot take it through the phase 3 study ourselves. That is a huge study costing many, many millions of dollars. And as a small company, we don't have the personnel for that. So we need to find a big partner for that. And then eventually we have registration and launch in 2032, 2033. So 4 steps: safety and early signals, that's what we're doing now, then clinical proof, partnering, and patient launch. All right, I've now explained how our therapy works and what we're aiming to do to take it to market. And we'd like to talk a little bit more about our company, just so you understand who we are and how we run the company. It's called Big Shots in Small Waistline because what I want to get across is that we have multiple shots on goal. We're trying different approaches, and we're running a very, very tight ship. We're not spending a lot of money. We have a very tight financial control. I'm the CFO, so I oversee that personally. We're a platform-based vaccine company. We have many different pipeline assets, although it's only the top one that we control 100%, the breast cancer vaccine. You can see here we have many malaria vaccines that we're working on. Those are all in partnership with University of Oxford. And so Oxford is the one who's actually running these. We've contributed our platform technology, and we could have some monetization of that down the road through licensing agreements, but we're not doing any further work there. So we're not spending any money on the malaria vaccines. That's Oxford's project using our platform. We also contribute to a couple of influenza consortiums and a Nipah virus consortium. But we do these through consortiums with other players, and those are all grant-driven projects. The last one is a COVID-19 project that's been discontinued. It was out-licensed to Bavarian Nordic back in 2020, and it made it through phase 3 with strong phase 3 data, so we could like to think of it as having proof of concept, but it was not fast enough to market, and therefore Pfizer and Moderna won that game. To touch on our team very rapidly, we have an executive management team. There are 3 of us there. Our CEO has deep experience in life science. He also has a deep specific experience in business development and licensing deals, as well as a background in finance. Our CSO, he's been working for many years in molecular biology, and he also taps into a team of about 16 research scientists from around the world who are supporting him in our efforts. And then finally, I have a background in finance for the last 24 years, working with companies like JP Morgan in New York, Danske Bank in Copenhagen, and Accenture was my first role out of college. We're supported by an extended leadership team that has experience starting in concept of drug development, taking it all the way to commercialization. So we believe we have the right people, and of course, we have a very strong team supporting us. cost discipline. We've brought our costs down considerably over the last 2 years, reflecting the market realities of raising capital right now and taking drugs through development. Whereas before we might have been focusing on multiple assets, we decided to focus on our lead asset and to bring our costs down. You can see our R&D costs have come down considerably. I would say that those are very volatile and depends on where we are in our pipeline development. So they can go up and down quarter to quarter. Our personnel costs are fairly consistent. We brought them down in 2023, and since then they've been plus or minus the same area. We have income from our CRO business, our contract research service, where we develop proteins for other companies, for big pharma companies, or we license our platform to them. And we also get grant income related to the grant consortia that I mentioned earlier. And the way we see this is a way to develop our pipeline further, and also to reduce the costs related to our pipeline development. So it helps us out a little bit. Our cash balance is around 50 million Swedish crowns. We've raised around 91 million Swedish crowns over the last 18 months. So if you were to average that out, that means that we spend about 5.5 million Swedish crowns per month over the last 18 months. We've had a broad source of cash coming in from grant payments. We have a dividend from an associated company. We've had rights issue, and we've had warrants. Our runway right now takes us through the first quarter of 2026, and that doesn't include a warrant series that we currently have open. All right, to close, I'd like to talk about why you should invest now, what plans we have in terms of capital, and also our risks. Why invest now? As I mentioned before, we have key readouts coming in 2026, with possibly earlier readouts happening before the end of the year. And each of these, we believe, is a significant value inflection point for the company, because it's taking us from conceptual design for our drug to real proof in humans that it's working. Furthermore, the malaria vaccines that Oxford is developing, those are going through there are actually 11 trials going on right now. And some are going to have phase 1 data this year, and then there's one having phase 2 data in the middle of next year. And then finally, one of our grants are working on for a Nipah vaccine. There should be a lead candidate selected this year, and that could be ours, or it could be one from our associated company. On the strategic and financial side, I just want to mention that we aim to finalize a malaria vaccine license in the near future. We could have new patents filed, further development with our grant projects, and then our CRO business could continue to grow. We grew 49% year over year in the second quarter. Right now, we have a warrant series that is up for subscription at the end of this month. Actually, September 18th through October 2nd is the exercise period. The price is 14.65 Swedish crowns. That's a 30% discount from the period September 1st through 12th. And we hope that people would like to participate in that. The TO11 warrants are actually trading on the NASDAQ First North Exchange, so you could purchase them there if you're interested. You can also come talk to me afterwards. I'm happy to tell you more. And finally, our key risks. Clinical trial risk, we could lose patients. Our recruitment rate could be not as fast as we would like. And of course, we could have data that doesn't tell us what we'd like to hear. The way we mitigate that is by having more sites than one. We went from 1 to 3 sites. And we also have 5 referring clinics that are bringing patients in. We also have this dose escalation design where we start with a very low dose so that the chance of having a bad safety outcome is very low, and we go up slowly. Partnership dependence. We are focused on partnerships for our external programs, and we're subject to their timelines there. We try to diversify this by having multiple programs with different partners. And then finally, on the funding and runway, our cash needs exceed what we need to take things through development. And so one way we mitigate this is through warrant programs and other ways that we've raised capital in the past 18 months that I mentioned earlier. So with that, I hope you understand that that the breast cancer vaccine is there to address a very significant material unmet medical need, and that we're doing everything we can to push it through development while keeping our costs low. And that we hope you also find that we're an interesting investment at this point in time because of the data we have coming. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Keith. We don't have any more time, I'm afraid so, but thank you very much, and nice to listen to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.